on this computer.
There you go.
Yep, we did it. All right. Hey, everybody. Today I'm here with Shane, who's the director of the upcoming action film Double Threat. Say hi, Shane.
How you doing, man? It's great to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's not a problem at all. I'm glad to have you on. Now, from what I've been told, Double Threat tells the story of a young woman with split personalities who becomes entangled with a man on a pilgrimage across the country to scatter his brother's ashes. Now, before we get into the whole meat of this, tell me, what was it? Are you happy with the film that you made?
You know, I'm really, really proud of the film that we made, because basically what happened is we were sitting in early September of 2020, and we had all been on lockdown since March. And I was sitting in my home office and I was just done looking at the walls. I had, created with the writer I was working with, CJ Wally, and we had just, created 100 different ideas during this time. And finally I woke up one day and I texted him and I said, dude, let's jump on a Skype. So we jumped on a Skype and I said, I got to tell you, it's September of 2020. We've been locked down for 6 months. I said, we have a choice, bro. I said, we can look in the rearview mirror and say 2020 kicked our ass, or we can flip it around and make it our bitch. And I said, here's how this is going to go. I'm going to make a movie before the year is over. I want to do it with you because I love working with you, bro. I'll figure it out. I know I can get locations, I can get equipment, and I know we could find a few actors that'll want to come out and play with us. Are you down? He goes, I'd love to. And so we talked about this idea that I had that was about, I had traveled across down all the way to Baja in Loreto with my dad on a road trip from LA to Loreto about 5 years ago. He was directing a film down there and we did a scout and we elected to take a road trip. On the way back, we stopped at this gas station mini mart in the middle of nowhere. And behind the counter of this mini mart was this absolutely beautiful young woman who absolutely did not belong there. It was one of those things where you looked at where you were in the middle of the desert in a lot of really, really scary looking clientele. And here was this lovely woman who was working behind the counter. And I remember leaving and driving in silence for about 10, 15 minutes. And I said to my dad, I said, did that seem right to you? And he goes, you're talking about the girl behind the counter? And I said, yeah. And he goes, no. He goes, that is definitely, something's up. So I kind of jotted down the note. Interesting, lovely girl behind the counter in the middle of nowhere. And I tucked it away. So when I had this conversation with CJ a few years later, I said, what about that, this idea about this girl behind a counter that maybe she's a covert, she's been put there by the CIA for the cartel. I don't know. So he said, I got the idea. 6 days later, he had a shooting script. He took my idea and sent me a script 6 days later, done. And because he knew we were in a hurry. And Danielle C. Ryan, her manager, Kurt Patino, and I and CJ had talked over the next few days and said, we're going to make a movie. You want to do it? And because we'd been in talks about doing some things before the pandemic, and they were just having the same conversation. I think Kurt had said to Danielle, maybe we should call Shane and see if he's up to trying to do something before the year's over. And then it just snowballed. And then we got in touch with Matthew Lawrence, and he was totally down. And then Don Olivieri had apparently called her agent 3 days before we reached out to her and said, I know there's some crazy mofos out there that want to make movies right now. Let me know what you can find out. So she said, send me the script and I'll get it to Don. And Don was on board. And then Kurt knew Kevin Joy, who is our fourth lead. I mean, it only really has 4 actors that were separated. We shot them in pairs throughout the whole film. And so back to your question of an hour and a half ago, am I pleased with it? Considering it was just when SAG started allowing people to shoot again, we couldn't have more than 20 people on a set. We were unbelievably regulated. We were way underfunded, and we had to follow all the COVID protocols, which were testing everybody 3 times a week. Those tests, cost an exorbitant amount of money because it was new. We did over 400 tests in the 4 weeks we shot. Not one person popped positive. And we had a crew, between 10 and 12 people that we rotated. And all things considering, what we did when we did, yeah, I am damn proud of it. I'm very pleased with it. It's a lot of fun. I mean, if you're going into something thinking it's going to compare to a Top Gun production value, or even some of the other production value level of films that I've done, you don't go in with that in mind. It's literally a fun dirt movie. The cool thing is there were no stunt doubles. Danielle C. Ryan, Matthew, no stunt doubles. They did everything themselves. And when you see what Danielle does, especially in this film, with her fight scenes, the stunts she does on the horses, it's all her.
Oh my, yeah, no, because it really does warm my heart to hear that. It's like, you want to know what? Things are starting to lift. Let's just make something. I love hearing stories of creators who are just like, I'm sick and tired of waiting. I want to create. But I did hear that that there were no stunt doubles used for this movie. Now, before we get further into that, I'd like to actually touch upon, the atmosphere, because this was shot, like, I think the big meat of the pandemic really came from, I think, around August of 2020 to just about maybe August or even September of 2021. That was a hard time for everybody. So what I'm actually interested in hearing is, what was the atmosphere like on set? What was, you're testing people 3-4 times a week, what did that do to everybody? What did that do to you?
Well, it was interesting because most of the people on our crew had not gone back to work yet. For most, it was their first time back at work. It was great because everybody on the set, with the exception of one or two in the camera department, were familiar faces for us. These were friends that we've been making movies with for 20, 30 years. So with the exception of, I think, 2, maybe 3 people on the crew, everybody was our film family. And they were ecstatic and elated to get out of the house and go do something. And we just wanted, the Batman film was shut down. We shot this in December of 2020. And that's when they said, you guys can go back to filming. And then the governor said, we're stopping all filming. And then that day he changed his mind. And it was crazy. I mean, we lost 9 locations during filming that we were going to do. And thank God a great friend of ours, Mike C. Ryan, said, hey, you guys are in the middle of making a movie. I'm just going to leave some keys to some locks on my property. If you want to come out and you need a location, don't worry about it. You're safe here. And we ended up going up to his place and his neighbor, Jimmy Vasquez, for, 12 days and just knocked it out. All those things that we lost, we just kind of tweaked the script and the circumstances for that. But the atmosphere couldn't have been better. It was one of the more enjoyable films I've ever been a part of because everybody was in it for the love. I mean, as I said, we were way underfunded. It came together in just a few short days. I mean, from concept to wrap was like 2.5 months. And everybody was just really happy to get out of the house and see friends again. And everybody, I got to say, the coolest thing was our cast and crew really honored the bubble, the protocol that we asked them to adhere to, because I just said, guys, we don't have the money to pause. We don't have the resources if we have to stop for a week because somebody got COVID. We have to plow through. So it's and our crew kept each other accountable, which was really special. We hired a lot of people who were roommates or couples, so they made sure they stayed in on weekends and adhered to the rules when we had our days off and didn't go out, because there were some soft openings with the holidays coming up. They were starting to let people out a little bit.
Yeah, because from what I remember like a little bit in May, and sorry, not May, but sorry, you're right. Back in November during the holidays, things were opening up a little bit, and then it just went up and then it went right back down.
Boom! It crashed again in like February. Yeah.
Yep. No, it got so much worse because I remember working back in February for like a week, and it's like, hey, no masks. And I'm just like, oh, sweet. And it's like, oh, no, okay, right back on. But no, I am glad to hear that there was an overall very positive, like there was just a very positive attitude on set despite how bad things were during that time. But moving gears over to there being no stunt doubles. Tell me about that. What was how long did it take for your actors to get their stunts right? And two, how long did it take just for everything to be shot in a way that was convincing?
Well, you know, Danny, our star, Danielle C. Ryan, she comes from, you know, I found this out in an interview she did the other day. She did her first stunts in Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers. Ron Howard directed that. She played Thing One with opposite Dakota Fanning. And they needed these kids to do these unbelievable acrobatics. And they were having trouble, I guess, getting stunt doubles that were that small. And Danny was like, I'll do it. So she did her first stunts on Cat in the Hat and just fell in love with it and started doing stunt work. And she's also a very accomplished actor, but she also does a lot of fight coordinating. She's very well skilled in hand-to-hand combat, mixed martial arts. I forget the actual discipline she studies, but she's unbelievable. So I called a friend of mine, Doc Duhame, who, you know, if you check him out, he's, you know, Ray Donovan's fight coordinator. He's done work with Spielberg, Mel Gibson. He was Gene Hackman's guy for 30 years. I've known Doc since I was in diapers. And I called Doc and said, hey, I'm guessing you're not working right now. We're doing something and we want to have some fun fight scenes and some really cool car chases and horse stuff. And Doc's also got a lot of experience with horses. So he signed right up, had this whole list. He needed to see Danny and try to get all this list of, you know, who would come out of the woodworks to do stunts. And I said, no, that's the only thing. And her deal is she's got to do all her own stunts. And he was like, bro, you're kidding me. Come on. I said, just go hang out with her for an afternoon. I connected them. They went to some park in Woodland Hills. He brought some fight pads. He called me up about an hour later and he was like, dude, where has this girl been hiding? I've never seen anything like it. So Doc worked with a utility stunt woman while we were shooting, followed what CJ had written really well in the script. He had basically, you know, written out the big fight scenes and the horse stunts. And Doc just worked with a utility girl, which is basically somebody who blocks it out with the other fighters while we were shooting. And then on one of Danny's days off, she went to the park with the 2 or 3 guys that she was doing all this, you know, fighting against. And they worked it out in one day. I mean, I was blown away. And what was really funny is when we shot the actual big fight scene, there's a lot of stunts in the film, but the big fight scene, it goes on for like 3 minutes and 20 seconds. That was the big one. We knocked that out. You know, it was almost like they could have done it in real time, but they were stopping for us so we could get multiple angles, multiple setups, you know, change lenses. So we just kind of went through it, had it all blocked out, did everything on, you know, a pair of lenses, gave him a break. Let's go back. Let's swap lenses. Let's get the, you know, the close-ups, the inserts. Let's get pickups. And we knocked the whole fight scene out in a few hours. And I was really impressed with how it came out. And I hope, you know, the viewers, if they get a chance to see the film, will see that and realize, you know, how hard they worked and how precise they were at what they did. And it goes from obviously the guys she fights with to Danny to Doc, our stunt coordinator.
Wow, that's honestly really exciting to hear, because it sounds like one, it always is good to have someone who already knows what they're doing to be on set, which actually kind of goes into what I wanted to ask you about. Considering you directed this film, it actually does seem like they knew what they were doing. Now, I'm guessing this isn't your first rodeo as a director, but what I'm actually wondering is, what's your style when you approach this? Because it does seem like your actors knew what they were doing and only stopped. They were just like, hey, is that good? So it seems like there's a lot of trust there. So can you tell me what your directorial style is?
Well, you know, it's very different from a lot. When I direct more drama or, you know, romantic comedy, or when it's discussionary work, I approach it. I'm very hands-on in the casting if I don't do the casting myself on our films. So I already know we're putting the right people in the right roles. I have absolute trust. It's that old Sidney Lumet mindset of if you hire an actor, you trust them, and you have to die in that sword if they don't have a good day or if they're having struggles. And fortunately, we've been really blessed with people that know their craft, with people that, you know, characters are kind of catered for them. And I come, you know, you can see the rock and roll memorabilia behind me. I come from a rock and roll background, and for me, my favorite bands growing up were like Aerosmith, Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones. And what made those bands great and why I think they still translate to being so popular today is, besides the great songs they wrote, they were plug in and play. They didn't overthink it. They plugged in an amp, they turned on their guitar, and they played great rock and roll. And I'm not at all comparing my work to great rock and roll, but the mindset of how I approach is, we got cameras, cool. We got actors, cool. Sounds rolling, cool. Let's play. Let's have some fun. Let's jam. And I look at our workday on the set when our cameras are rolling as kind of like a band would perform a live show or rehearse or jam. So for me, I've always approached it that way. Now, on the action scenes, we've done a lot of at sea action with speedboats, motorcycles. This last film we just did, Double Threat, is pretty gnarly. Break even had a lot of car chases. I did this also in this film. Is I didn't watch the monitors. I sit with the monitors and I glance at them once in a while to make sure everybody's hitting their mark. Everything's. I have such trust with Joel Leogan, who shot it with John Salami and David Crawford. I've known these guys for 25 years, and I cut most of the stuff that I make. So when I do action scenes, I very seldomly will watch the monitor, because when I get in the edit bay, I want to be surprised. I want to discover what we got. I don't want to know what we got. I want to discover those moments. And I think it makes a little bit of a difference, especially when you're doing things on a lower budget level than a $100 million film where they're going to spend, Mike C. Ryan, the guy I mentioned earlier, he's been on Fast 10 for 2.5 months, and they're spending a week right now on one scene, which is awesome. That would be great to have that kind of time and money, but we knock these scenes out in a matter of a few hours. And sometimes we get as many as 7 cameras, 5 cameras, or sometimes we're just stuck with the 2 that we have. It's okay. And I love going into the edit bay being surprised. And going back to my directing style, when I work with walk and talk drama, I prefer not to have a script supervisor on set. I like somebody just making sure they hit the beats of the scene, but I don't want to hear about continuity. I don't want to hear about, oh, is this the best take, or how was that, or circle that one. I really liked it, because going back to cutting, and I come from a 30-year, being an editor for 30 years before I started directing. To me, what you think is gold on the set when you get in the edit bay isn't always gold. And what you think is trash on the set has got some unbelievable gems and nuances in it that you if you in your mind say this is a wasted take. So I don't rely on any script notes. I don't like them. Even as an editor of 30 years, I still don't know how to read a scriptie's notes. Not interested in it. I like to feel every moment and intercut a scene with various takes and make it play.
So would you say you're a firm believer of a film is made 3 times, 1 in the script, 2 during the shoot, and 3 in the editing bay?
Yeah, my saying is that I believe forever is there's 3 films: the one you write, the one you shoot, the one you cut. So yeah, that's always been my mindset.
Oh, that honestly, coming from a guy who has made only a handful of shorts himself, I can definitely see that moniker, because it can sometimes be challenging. You think you have something that's super solid in the script, and then you get to shoot and you're like, okay, well, maybe this might not be the best, but then you get to the edit bay and you're just like, okay, how is it that I missed this, this, and this? Because this, what I have right here, is completely different than what I wrote, but it's not bad.
Right.
So with that, putting that on the side, one thing that's really intriguing to hear is that it seems that overall, no film is easy breezy. No film is easy breezy. But would you say that Double Threat is among the more challenging films you've ever made, or would you say this is one of the more, I hate saying it, but
you're right. Films are not easy. But it was funny because it was the one that we were least prepared to make, the least prep time. I like 3 months solid of pre-production. I talk about that in my book is, I over prepare to make a film so production is smooth and fun. And wheels, when wheels start coming off the wagon during a production, it's very often hard to get back on track and fix it. So I've been fortunate in 30 years of producing and directing to never have an unfixable issue. And believe me, we've had sets blow away. We've had hero cars catch fire and not be able to make the shoot the day of. And you just got to be able to think on your feet. And for me, Double Threat, we had our share of problems, but everybody was just so happy to be there. We all pitched in and made it work. We just didn't care. It was one of those things where, a car broke down, and it was like one of the crew came up and said, "Wait, we haven't shot this car yet, right now. Just take mine. Here are my keys, wash it when you're done." And, that's kind of how we did it. And I had just such confidence in Danny, Matthew, and Kevin, and Dawn, and the other two actors that were, we were able to sneak in, Val and David and Mo. And it just was I was so happy to be shooting again. There was nothing that could have gone wrong as long as nobody got hurt. You know what I mean? That's safety first. We never want anybody hurt on a set. Unfortunately, nobody ever has been, but it was easy because we were just happy to be there. We couldn't fail. We just knew as long as the image stuck to the card and it made it home that night, we succeeded. We didn't go in with any illusions of grandeur or preconceived notions of where this may or may not go. It was just, we're out of the house when we're together.
Oh, I like hearing that, honestly. So I'm guessing it really wasn't a matter of, it was challenging in the sense of, oh, we don't have a lot of time, but it was more, but I guess in terms of your own film repertoire, this was probably one of the more easygoing ones because you just had, everyone knew each other. So it's like, crap, we don't have a car working. Just make sure it's not dirty and you're fine.
That's what happened. I mean, we were really fortunate. I mean, as I said, we lost 9 locations going in during production because there was that, okay, Hollywood's opening back up. So a lot of the people that own properties, a lot of the stores or ranches or restaurants that we were going to shoot in were very open to us coming in. And then once the clouds started getting very dark and they were considering stopping filming, we got, I think, 5 calls in one day saying location pulled out, they don't want us. So we ended up shooting it. My cousin owned a log cabin in Big Bear. We went up there for 3 days, out in the desert, Primm, Nevada. I mean, we just went where we knew we wouldn't be in anybody's face or make anybody nervous, and we could just do what we do and be left alone.
I envy you. Just one filmmaker to another, I envy you because it really just does seem like, despite all of these little, I don't want to say you had bumps in the road, and it does kind of more feel like you had maybe a small rock that you're tiring over, and you're just like, oh, that was uncomfortable for a second. Oh, look at that. It's just downhill, but the good kind of downhill where you don't really need to press the gas. It's just easy going. So it's good to hear that you had at least a smoother production than a lot of others did.
We really did. We were really fortunate.
And honestly, I can only hope that your next production goes as smooth, which, speaking of, I want to know, what do you have coming up? Should there be anything that people or even fans of yours should be looking for down the pipeline?
Well, thank you. We just finished up a film called Night Train with Danielle C. Ryan again and Diora Baird. A lot of people know Diora from Wedding Crashers, from Cobra Kai, from Chainsaw Massacre. I've actually wanted to work with Diora for a long time. And when this project happened, incidentally, her agent used to rep the guys in Poison back in the day. And so I've had a relationship with Cynthia over the years. And when it came time to casting this, I called her up and said, hey, I'd love to work with Diora, and can we put something together? And we were really fortunate to get her. She did a great job. Night Train is about a single mom who has a son with cystic fibrosis, and she's kind of living hand to mouth in a gig economy, doesn't have medical insurance. And that disease is very close to us. I lost 2 friends growing up to cystic fibrosis, and Danny's nephew lives with it. And so we had her character with a child with cystic fibrosis, and she was relying on black market medical supplies from a dealer in the desert that she got it from. But the problem is is the FBI started closing in on that hub, and they give her a warning saying that this is going to be the last supply you get for a while because we're going to have to shut down and lay low. And so she comes up with the idea of, let me do it. Let me make the runs. I'll make planes look slow in the process. So she starts doing the runs from Vegas to Palm Springs in her souped up 550 horsepower dually called the Night Train, which she side hustles, betting in street races with. So we set her up as a speed demon right away. She's also part of the 200-mile-an-hour club, which we have her on two wheels racing out in El Mirage Salt Flats, doing about 175, 200 miles an hour, which was actually done by Valerie Thompson, who is the world's fastest woman on two wheels. Valerie holds, I think, 10 world records. So Valerie came out and played with us for a day. That was the only time Danny didn't do her own stunts when she's worked with me, because Valerie came out and we had a windy day in the desert and she did 170. I think she got up to 178 for us. So we got some great footage of that too. So I'm really proud of Night Train. So that's going to come out next year. We just finished it up, and we're looking for. We don't have a date for that yet, but maybe you'll have me back and we'll talk about it.
I just hearing. So we went 178 miles per hour in the desert. I want to hear. Well, I think I'll save that question for when I interview you for Night Train. But that within itself sounds. Just coming from a guy who loves going fast, I'd love to hear about that. But
well, I mean, just the really funny thing about it is Valerie came out, and it was funny because she had done a few runs to warm up, and I turned to her tactician and I said, "So how fast was she going?" "About $150." And he looked at the computer readout and he goes, she only went up to about 174. And so she came in and she said, "There is such a crosswind, guys. We're going to have to change everything." And, of course, Joelle's like, whoa, before you change anything, we got something called a sun and a light problem. You can't just flip everything around. So let's find that happy medium. So we waited a little while. Wind died down a little bit. And yeah, she gets it up to about 160 to 174. She flew.
Oh, my goodness. Well, honestly, now I envy her because, every person wants to get a little fast in their car. So, to hear that.
Well, that was a motorcycle, not a car. That was
a motorcycle. Two-wheel. Oh, right. You said two-wheeler. Oh, my goodness. That's even cooler.
Yeah, it was a BMW 1100 that she has, that she does her normal dry lake runs on. So that's what she brought out.
Goodness gracious. Well, I'm excited to see that whenever it drops. I guess my last question for you before I let you get cool, because for those of you that don't know, it is about it's probably like mid-90s in California right now, and I'm using an ice pack on my back because I am sweating like it's nobody's business. So
well, you don't show it. I haven't seen any sweat go down your head yet, so you're in good shape.
Well, thank goodness for me. I guess my last question for you, and I always try to ask this, and this is, do you have a dream project? Do you have something that you just really want to be like, you want to know what, if I was given no budget, but I mean no budget, I mean just all the money in the world.
Whatever you want. Sure.
If you were given all the money you ever wanted, what's your dream project?
There's a project that I have committed to make before I die. And that's the Kelly Sutton story. Kelly Sutton is a wonderful human being. She's a dear friend. She is a female NASCAR driver. A lot of people don't know. She held the record at Daytona for a track time years ago. Kelly suffers from multiple sclerosis, and she was a NASCAR driver. In fact, it was kind of a heartbreak because when I first encountered Kelly and told her I wanted to make her story, we had a deal at a network, and it was a go. And an agent got in the middle of it and squirreled it up and completely killed the deal, which was really a heartbreak. But I believe deep down it was meant not to be done then, because I think doing it on television would have neutered it. Having grown so much as a filmmaker in the last 14 years since I've known Kelly, I've really become passionate about telling stories with women in the driver's seat and really understanding speed and camera and sleight of hand work and being able to really put a lot on the screen. So I really want to tell Kelly's story. She's been through hell and back. She should have been destined to a wheelchair by the time she was 16. She's, I think, flatlined 3 times. She's, you know, one of the most remarkable human beings on the planet, and one of my favorite ladies to ever step into a pair of shoes. And I touch base with Kelly as often as we do, and always tell her I haven't forgotten. This is something that I want to tell, and it's her, you know, it's her story, and just growing up a young girl whose father, you know, was a mechanic for race cars, and she fell in love when she was 4 years old. She watched the Daytona 500 on TV with her dad and said, one day I'm going to race that. And okay, sure, honey. And when she was, I think, 11 years old, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and they didn't think she'd be able to walk after the age of 14. And she's a remarkable human being, and she's been through it all. There's footage of Earnhardt Jr. putting her on the wall at 180 miles an hour. She goes out and races, used to rub elbows with the big boys. I mean, she was not a powder puff, to say the least. So, you know, I get very excited thinking about her story. I get very emotional thinking about her story, knowing what she's went through, and she's trusted me with it. And I just hope I'm able to deliver that for her and her family.
Well, it seems you have the passion for it. So
I
I
do.
do wholeheartedly believe that you are more than capable of delivering and telling her story the way it should be told.
Thank you. That's the one that's, you know, that white whale that we're going to get done. And we're going to do it right. We're going to do it right.
Well, Captain Ahab, I wish you good luck hunting
Thank
that
you,
white
man.
whale.
I appreciate it.
All right. This has been Shane Stanley. Make sure to check out his film Double Threat, which will hopefully release relatively soon. Hold on. Is there any place people can watch it or buy it?
Oh God, yeah. I wish I had the list. It's everywhere from Amazon Prime, Fandango, IndieVugu, Google, Xbox. There's like 30 platforms it's on. It came out June 3rd.
Okay. Well, if you are interested in checking out his film, be sure to check it out and support a good filmmaker. Shane, thank you for coming here, and I'm glad I got the chance to talk to you.
Likewise, man. I hope we get to do it again soon.
All right. Take care.